Are we rocking on all cylinders? Noel, you give me the green light? All right, Ryan. Well, hey, man, thanks for jumping out with us this morning. First of all, yeah, you got your coffee there. That's what we were talking about last night. So is that the first coffee of the day for you?
No. Um,
Not even
I,
close.
I'm an early riser. I'm an early bird. So I get up, I do my light hypoxic.
There you go.
After I go hit my Nespresso button, I got a little, espresso machine.
There you go.
Um, and I'll have one espresso before I go to the gym. Get my workout in, then head into the office and I'll grab a coffee on my way to the office.
So you've already worked out today.
Yeah.
Like in actual, I know the breathing part, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, but you've already done like the pounded the weights and everything too.
Yeah. I'm not getting under the bar and going crazy.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
I'm getting old. I'm 37 now, so I like to get a sweat. So whether that be getting on the stepper, walking incline treadmill
Yeah,
to kind of get things started, and then I'll do some kind of light lifting, full body stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, 5 to 6 days a week. It's something that keeps me
In
keeps me at
line.
homeostasis.
I hear you, man. Well, here, cheers to the coffee. That's why I told you we'd have a morning coffee with you. We got Ryan Gipson today with us with the Oregon State baseball team. So, two things here, Ryan. I've gotten to know you over the last couple of months, which has been a blast. Which I'm going to keep poking in at you on your last comment about training, because I just had a cool conversation yesterday with a good buddy of mine about that. But then also, I told you this, I think a month or so ago. You're in one of my bucket list states out in Oregon. So that's one of my bucket list spots. So all I can imagine is myself having an espresso at 4 in the morning as sun's coming over the trees. I got a mystical vision of what your part of the country looks like. Now I've touched Northern Cal. I've been to Washington. I've done all those sort of things. I lived in Montana for a bit, and I've never been in the Mecca, where I believe is where you guys are at. But I can imagine the espresso morning with the walk, and I got this whole scene in my mind. And then also, I know you're a college baseball coach, so you got to get these guys early because you're going to be an up and at 'em. And I know this is a special moment for you in the mornings to have this peaceful time. So I appreciate you giving us some of your time this morning, man. But it's good to have you and chop up a conversation on a podcast with you. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, brother. So I want to touch on that first. I was looking through, when I first was talking to you. So you're with Mitch in terms of you guys are kind of heading that system. But just I was looking through some stuff this morning as well, and I remember you telling me this a while back. You guys were college teammates, correct?
We were.
And then you were on. Did you guys win at 06, 07? I was reading this morning. You were at what, 06 team? You guys won the national championship when you were a player there?
Yep. I was a JC transfer, so my 2 years were 2005, 2006. Mitch was a high school guy that was 4.56.
Okay.
Next, I think he redshirted 3, but yeah, 4.56. Or sorry, never mind. 4 was the redshirt. Then he was there 5.6.7. So he was there for that, whole first. Because 5 we went to Omaha, 2 and Q. Then obviously 6, 7 were the back-to-back years.
So because I had no idea the Beavers were even, I didn't know, I mean, you'll know this, but beforehand, like in the early 2000s, late 90s, were you guys a powerhouse? Because obviously I graduated high school in 2007. So you guys came on my radar, obviously, because you guys were in Omaha. So I was watching you play, which is always funny to me. I always think it's really cool to think that I watched you play on TV very highly in Omaha, and now just years later, we're just chopping up a conversation. But so that was when the Beavers became on my radar, was those years. Were you guys a powerhouse going into that? Or because from what I remember as a high school kid, it seemed like it happened like that. But I could be way off. I mean, this is just from what I remember.
No, you're right. I think we came on everybody's radar, the national stage or whatever you want to call it, really starting in 2005.
Yeah.
From what I understand, because I wasn't there, but 2004 they had a good club, but still fell short of a regional, as a regional team. But yeah, and even in high school, because like I said, I went to junior college. Oregon State was always that. Sure, it was a dream school because it was a Division I, fairly close to home in the Northwest. But by no means was it a perennial power.
Yeah, and so, but you guys have carried that, right? Wouldn't you say that you've sort of carried that on since those years? I mean, now it's been a powerhouse for a decade.
When you look at College World Series appearances
Yeah.
and national titles, to me we're numero uno. But
yeah.
Our resume since 2005 is as good or better than any, and that's a credit to Case. What Case got rolling, kind of starting during 2005, is what was wild to me. It's still wild to me to think about it. It was a bunch of Oregon kids.
Yeah.
It was state of Oregon's not big, but it was a bunch of Oregon kids, a couple Washington guys, one guy from Montana, and the rest is history. So obviously there was some talent kind of pooled up or built up here in the Northwest during that time. But really, to me, again, it's a credit to Case and kind of his driving force behind it.
So that's what I was going to ask. So you grew up that part of the country, right? Was this sort of the trajectory? Where'd you grow up originally? What was the path to leading you into JC and then college baseball as a player? Take you through the glory days first.
From Southern Oregon. So Central Point, which is right outside of Medford, Oregon, which is the little bit kind of, I guess, nothing's really big in Southern Oregon, but the bigger of the towns. And I didn't have opportunity, and baseball was different. And, 2000, there wasn't showcases. There wasn't anything like that.
Right.
And so that I had a buddy's older brother went down to Shasta College in Redding, California. And the only reason I chose to go down there is because I knew somebody that went there, and went down, visited the head coach, got along with the head coach. And that's kind of how I ended up down there.
So, okay, nice. And then where'd you go when in your coaching career, when you get done playing? How was the path after college? Did you play after that for a while?
A little bit, just independent ball, Frontier League for a little bit.
Okay.
Golden Baseball League.
Okay.
Until it was actually the last year of that league.
Yeah.
That has now obviously gone away. And then played and coached as a player coach in Australia. And
let's go.
That was blessed.
Yeah. What years were that? What team was that? I was going to go play for the Aces. That was my Melbourne. I used to sell Melbourne, and I remember the GM called me and said, if you ever call it Melbourne, you're not going to be allowed over here.
Yeah, Melbourne.
Yeah.
Melbourne. Yeah. Melbourne. So you're challenging me right now with my dates. The team that I played for was called the Eastern Hills Hornets.
Okay.
So the way Australia works, there's provincial league, state league, and then now there's the ABL, which minor league baseball is now back over there, and it's somewhat affiliated with minor league baseball as like a winter league. Mm-hmm. Provincial league is lower than the state league. I was actually contacted by this Eastern Hills team to go over and head and coach all the the top team, their youth stuff, and play for them. And I got to bring another American import, a pitcher. His name is TJ Woolover, left-hander. And we went over there, did that deal. I want to say it would have been 2009 to 10-ish, right around there.
Yeah.
2009, I think.
Okay, so that would have been right away then. That's right after your play. So what are you, 25? You're probably 25 in that? 24?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So you just been pounding it.
It was, and we were in Perth. Perth is a blast. Perth is, obviously, it's on the, western side of Australia.
Yeah.
And everybody says that it's like 10 years behind the East Coast.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a throwback. The accent's a little bit thicker and heavier, more Crocodile Dundee. And it was an experience, that I'll cherish forever, man. It was was awesome.
Oh, I bet, man. I got a lot of guys who go, and as you know, a lot of guys in baseball specifically go over there and they live over there and they get a lot of stuff done. It sounds like a great experience, something that I didn't do, but I looked into that as winter ball. That was something that I had to try to decide, do I want to keep throwing or do I want to not throw going into spring training? But okay, so you do that, you bounce around, and then you come back here, you start coaching. What was sort of because where you're at now is obviously it's a sweet setup. You guys have an awesome thing going, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But what was the driving force? Was this sort of always the path when you were done playing? Did you go, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to coach in baseball. Because there's a lot of stuff that I know we're going to dive into. But was this always part of your vision of what you wanted to attack whenever you were done playing? Did you have any of those feelings while you played? What was sort of the decision maker going into that? Because you're in your mid-20s traveling the world here for baseball. I know how that path looks. What was the trajectory in which you wanted to head?
Honestly, I didn't want to coach. Right. I had no idea that coaching was, going to be kind of the end all be all for me.
Yeah.
I'm beyond thankful it is now, but I wanted to, like anybody, I wanted to play in the big leagues until I couldn't play anymore. And then, that was obviously the dream. But I came back from Australia and I came back and my plan was to only be back for like under 2 weeks, go to Antwerpen, Belgium, play in Antwerpen, Belgium for like 5 months or whatever.
Let's go.
Come home for like 2 weeks and then go back to Perth and just keep this dream going.
Here he is. Yeah.
And when I came back, a company that I had worked for prior to going to Australia, it's called Baseball Northwest. It's a recruiting service here in the Northwest. They do different showcases and whatever.
Sure.
I get back, I jump into working with Baseball Northwest, and the event we were doing, Coach Casey was there, and he kind of cornered me and was like, "Hey, you haven't finished your degree. It's something you got to do. Come be the undergrad this next year.
Sure.
Get your degree done. Do this, and then if you want to go play, you still can. You still can, man. You can still go do this. You're young, really, and so he changed the trajectory for me, big time there. Became the undergrad, and that's what kind of snowballed into really wanting to coach.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So he was essentially just being a coach, just telling you, just putting his arm over you and say, "Hey, I know you want to travel the world here, but let's make sure we get this thing done. Let's get this paper filed in." That's awesome, man. So that's super special that's where you're at, and that side of, that's got to be a cool feeling to be where you grew up, you travel around, you've experienced the world. Obviously, the baseball community is small yet large, so I know you have people from all over the world that you communicate with, and then you kind of bubble in and set up camp where you won a national championship at. And, as I was thinking this morning, as I was sort of preparing to get to talk to you, and it's cool to have these conversations because you get to hear about this sort of things, right? And you get to hear what you've done to where you're at now. I always think it's fascinating how, if I'm a high school guy and I'm talking to the phone on you, like I'd be really nervous, like if you would have called me, I would have been a nervous 17-year-old guy. Right. But then it's cool to even hear a coach say, "I'm trying to chase like that 20-year-old phase of your life, and then you got to get your degree." And it's just a cool passing of the torch. But what's interesting to me is you're coaching a team that years ago you won what everyone on your team specifically wants to do, right? You play in Omaha, you win the national championship, and then you're on a team. So it's something where there's not many people that you meet that get to do that or say that, right? So if you think of it, this morning when I was thinking about wanting to ask you this, it's sort of your first big baseball moment, unless you play in the big leagues, is Omaha. Right. It's like you either play in the big leagues or you made it to Omaha and you did that. Right. So my first question of that is, when you were that age and then now where you're at as a coach and you've now overseen, tons of people and tons of athletes who are phenomenal at the sport. But what was the in the moment that you can remember that you took away with for the rest of your life from just the ability to know that you could achieve something like that as an individual and a team? What was sort of the thing that carried with you after that experience to this day even?
As a team, it's pretty simple. And I'll give a ton of credit again to Mitch, because the leadership role that he had for us as a group was crazy. You know, it was second to none. But we decided it was about us.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about the coaches, Coach Casey, Coach Lees, Coach Spence, whatever. Like, it was not mom, dad, girlfriends, anything outside.
Yeah.
It was literally, it was us, and there was nothing else that was going to kind of penetrate that. And as simple as that sounds, I still feel now coaching for a while that doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen with teams often.
Yeah.
You can have teams that are extremely cohesive. They all get along. They all, like, you know, it's on the field, off the field, everything's good, but they don't realize kind of really what it means to really do it together, to really have genuine, you know, care for the guy next to him, for his successes.
Yeah.
And we had that. It was, we knew we were good. We knew it was about us. Yeah. And then individually, 2005. So the first year we get there, I had a really good year. Was like Pac-12 honorable mention or whatever. And I guess at that moment, getting to Rosenblatt. That's when it was Rosenblatt, and I'm so thankful it was Rosenblatt.
Man. Oh yeah.
I haven't been a TD Ameritrade yet, but Rosenblatt was
epic.
Wild.
Oh yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Getting there and then walking the stadium during open ceremony and just kind of, wow, taking it all in, just everything, the fireworks on the field overhead, and you're sitting down there, and then, you know, game day, to where, you know, BP in and out, and you go, and it's the first pitch of the game, and 25,000 plus. For me, being able to, like, I don't know, just, it was the game.
Yeah.
It was the same game since I was 6. Right. It was nothing different, and have it not faze me whatsoever was really telling for myself that I, you know, because I could see it in my peers that it was affecting others.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of been the story of me. I'm not a big guy. I've never had a great swing. I could play a little bit of defense, but like I overachieved.
Sure.
Because I think I, you know, was confident and you know, in my abilities and whatever it may be. So yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of really cool things in that, and off of what you just said, you know, something that I've found very consistent across a lot of people that I get to speak with is that they do what you just said. They demystify the moment in a large degree, you know, and it's something I've always thought about, and I'll ask you and see what you think. And I don't have an answer to this, so we'll see how it goes. But it's more of when you essentially want to demystify that moment. It doesn't necessarily have to be Omaha. It could be like the job or the presentation or your dream job, whatever, the big leagues, the NHL. It could be the moment that you've thought of for so long, and then you're in that moment. And the thing is, you have to still execute the thing that you were doing when you were 6. So you have to demystify that. And it kind of comes with like a really weird concept, because you would essentially have gotten to Omaha and Rosenblatt and gotten to everything you would want, and you could see that, you dream about that. And then when you're there, you have to not be in that. You have to demystify all of that. It's like a counterintuitive metaphor for so many things. But that's what I've seen a lot of, is like, how do you get to your first spring training, or how do you sign in the first round, or you sign in the draft, and then you go to your first camp, or you make your first big league outing, and you have to not be there. Like, you know what I mean? And that's sort of a thing. Is that something that you think has carried on, like maybe the wake of the early 2000s, mid 2000s, to where you guys are now, because you guys are still carrying those threads of leadership as coaches? Are you trying to decrease that time with 18 to 22-year-olds right away? Are you sharing that with them right away? Or are you kind of organically letting people make decisions on their own? Does that make sense?
I think just right there, it does have to happen organically for every individual. If I had the answer to
right, I knew I was
to
setting you up.
literally, using the term demystify, I mean, that's boom, that kind of like knocks it out of the park right there. But being able to do that, you're going to be, have more influence than anybody in the coaching community if you could do that, or have that the way of helping guys along. I think you feel your spikes dig into the dirt, when you run onto the field, and it's exactly what you've done forever and what you're doing. And so it's a really good question, because I can think of, just for me personally, it was to play in the big leagues, to get to play the highest level of baseball I possibly could, as well as I could for as long as I could, and just to get to that point. So playing in Omaha, it was playing another game. Right. It was, and so it didn't. Of course, you get off the chartered flight, and there's girls sitting there with boxes of Krispy Kreme donuts and bottled waters, and you take a police escort to your team hotel, and there's so much, mystification. There's so much awe.
Right.
But then when it was game time, it's you're playing another game.
Yeah.
And I wish I could answer that better for, how you could bring guys along faster.
Well, and that's why, because same topic again, because I think it's so fascinating where you get guys. I was asked this question. I was actually on a podcast a few weeks ago, and I was asked this question, like, how do you help someone, whatever, with like recognizing their triggers or recognizing a thing? Because you could have that conversation with your entire club before any situation and go, hey, if you guys, literally, I'm just going to give you the answer. If you demystify this entire thing, you're probably going to have a lot of success, but that's it. But you have no control over how someone perceives that or understands what you just said. Like, they could sit there and go, yeah, I get it. And it doesn't work. Now, the point I was going with the podcast I was on a few weeks ago was the fact that you're getting a guy at age 18 to 22 who's already had, or we'll get 18. I get him at 18, maybe 20 as he's a JC guy, whatever it is. But he's already had like 2 decades of living. So he's already had a bunch of coaches. He's already had parent influences, teachers, high school, all this stuff, friends, all these sort of environments. And now you're getting them, and then within a year, you're trying to mold like a way into a culture. You're trying to mold a way into the community, all this sort of stuff so quickly. So there's so much stuff going on. And I've always wondered, like, why do we know that adversity is so valuable? Like, we want to have a guy, a freshman or a sophomore, or the new guy in, or anyone, we want to have them go through adversity just in general, yet we like don't want adversity, but we know that this guy has to have this. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why I asked you that question of, now the wake of the series or that experience has obviously shown you and taught you so many things in the world travel. And I know, there's a lot to unpack on that, but have you found anything that has allowed you to decrease the slumping of an 18-year-old or 19-year-old when they do hit adversity, or they do hit that first mystical moment that they feel in their life? Have you found ways to at least help them decrease the time in trying to figure things out?
And this is kind of my basis. Like, I guess what I'm the most passionate about is perspective. Mm-hmm. To where if we have a guy that his lens towards failure is just that, and it's failure, and he's dejected, and you're in a fixed mindset. You're not growing because you understand that this is opportunity. Failure is what you want, because obviously that's where you grow from. That's where you make the adjustments to then win. Yeah. And so it's changing your lens. it's the perspective of failure. So if we can do the best job with our guys and how they perceive, that shortcoming or, the failure, they're gonna perceive it as opportunity. And so kind of changing their lens the best we can.
When they come in, and because you guys are obviously getting some of the best high school athletes in the country in terms of baseball specifically, when they come in, is there a sense of what's like the navigation system of trying to learn a guy as fast as you can before he comes to you? So because I don't know, I have no clue what it's like recruiting at this point in life, but there's so much stimulation and things coming in, and I'm sure you guys are getting poked by probably everyone in the country. How have you sort of tried to figure out a guy's lens as quick as you can too, so that you can kind of decide, is he going to come here and handle this? Because it's a wild platform to go play baseball there.
It is playing at Goss Stadium. Yeah. There's nothing like it.
Insane, right?
We may only squeeze in 4,000, but every game we're going to squeeze in 4,000, and they're on top of you, and there's nothing like it. Again, I'm biased, but it's time. I work with the hitters. I'm the hitting coach right now. Okay. So it's spending the most amount of time that I can with them within, NCAA compliance and all that. Yeah. To speak their language, to build real relationships, to get their trust. By all means, there's not a one size fits all. There's not a cookie cutting or anything like that. Like pretty much any coach will say. But speaking a player's language and learning from them, having them, I'm most thankful for when we do get to spend that time together. If it's a 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, where it's not the whole entire team practice, where it's a little bit more intimate. Mm-hmm. That's when guys tend to really open up and kind of really show what they want to know, what they do know, how they hear things, and so I think listening, gives them the best chance to be really kind of to trust you. So yeah.
Well, and that's an interesting thing, because you have so many. The other part of it is you're getting guys. I got to ask this to one of the hitting coaches for the Giants, and he had a cool answer of that. But let's say you have 3 guys and they have so many different philosophies. Something that would almost be intimidating, I would perceive as a college coach, is that whatever you say, I can take that and measure that up against anything online. I can measure that against, anything that I see, a flash in the pan on a tweet, whatever it is. And I know, I'm talking about how do you speak the language of, I'm sure you have to be like a chameleon. Like you're having to learn so many different languages. And I don't know if I know people in the sports world would understand what I'm saying by that, but you're getting different hitting languages, different philosophies, approaches from all of your guys. And you got to try to, 1, connect them to a philosophy, but then 2, you got to learn them all individually so you can see where they're coming from. What have you noticed about how you've been able to, just that in general, what have you noticed about trying to see where a guy's at and meet him there and then kind of patiently let things grow?
Probably how the individual interprets our principles.
Okay.
So if number 1 is controlling the strike zone, taking balls, swinging at strikes. Yeah. If that's number 1, and then number 2 is dominating the fastball, because that's going to put us in the best position if we can be on time to hit a pitcher's best fastball. Yeah. And we're also going to be able to hammer, off speed up. Sure. So if those are kind of 1A, 1B are the 2 principles that we want to get to with our guys, each guy is then going to interpret those a little bit differently. And then also throw in there, it always goes down to mechanics, because again, like you said, they're looking at something on Twitter, they're seeing what this guy said, and they're seeing what this guy is doing, and because this big league is doing this, they want to try this and tweak this. If if they're not able to do those two,
Yeah.
then we're gonna have those conversations of, well, hey, maybe it's a setup thing, maybe it's how you're landing. I don't know if I can answer the question, but it comes down to, I guess, how they interpret, kind of our system, our principles.
Yeah, do you ever feel like you're overloaded with having to keep up with the times of learning? I know a lot of I know myself, I think of it as I want to read everything and watch everything possible, but then then I also need to teach and coach and learn and experience, and then I need to do it to myself as well. So what is it like in the environment now as a coach when you look at it as all the stuff that you have to keep up with? Do you ever feel as if you need to know all the things that the big leaguers or people are doing? Do you feel like you have to know all that stuff?
I personally do, but I probably shouldn't.
Uh-huh.
Um, the one thing that I've had to kind of fast track this year has been all the tech.
Sure.
Mitch coming from the Mariners organization, or professional baseball, the technology and the use of data is so fluent that, and we brought it to our program, and I'm thankful that we're using it.
Yeah.
But again, I have to be careful in how I interpret it, and then how if I feel like I need to talk to the player about it, and then how we kind of, I guess, hide it from the player in a sense, where they know we're using it, they know we're looking at it, but I don't want them just deep diving and just
Right.
numbers, data. So the tech side of things is where I felt like I've had to really, fast track my learning with it. And I'm thankful for it though too. I'm doing different certifications and learning different things that it's helping me grow and look at things differently. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's always fun, right? Learning is awesome. What are you doing if you're not learning, just in any capacity, right? Learning is like the Taj Mahal of growth, which is what makes us all happy, right? But at the same time, something that you said in there about not wanting the guys to see all the technology is rather cool to me as well, because I've found that you see a lot of people who become like a prisoner to the thing. I think about that very often, where it's again, I'm not as in depth. I don't do anything with a hitter ever in baseball. So I just, from a bird's eye view of watching a Rapsodo or someone taking BP every now and then, I see it, or I have some guys that are baseball players that I'm friends with. So I watch things that they do. And it's always been interesting to me, because you could become very dependent on that thing. Like, you could have had a good swing or a good this or that, but now all of a sudden you actually, and this is just a fear of mine, I don't know. So, but I could see how an athlete specifically in baseball could become dependent on the result of what something immediately tells them that just happened, and never understand like internally what they felt. So it could be this swing now works because the machine said it worked, but that swing didn't work. And I don't know the depths of that, but I watch that happen a lot, and I would say that that's like something that I try to personally not do. And what I do specifically is not become I don't want to become dependent on an HRV monitor or a heart rate monitor, a metric, or a sleep. I don't want to have a sleep tracker tell me how I slept, because there's been days where I felt like I slept really good, and a sleep tracker said I didn't. So now my whole morning I've just been like, what happened? Did I sleep good? Like, what happened? And I could see how that could happen to an athlete. But is that is that a little bit down the lines of what you try to monitor as well, to try to keep it tech savvy, so we have some sort of metric to know we're improving, but then also keep the person a human so they can continue to intuitively feel things?
Yeah. So this was said to me by my JC hitting coach, who's a stud, Shannon Hunt.
Okay.
Hitting is a series of adjustments made through feel. And that, to me, that's so much more than hitting. That's
life.
Yeah, feel, man. Like,
yeah.
It's it's book smart versus common sense. It's like feel to me is at the root of everything. And so I've always loved that. And I always respect people that seem to have, just common sense, have feel, know what to, not necessarily even what to say, but when to speak or when to say something.
Yeah.
But the tech, I guess the only machine really that our guys could look at potentially after a swing is up in our upstairs cages at the field, which our guys have access to 24 hours, is a hit tracks.
Okay.
So they can potentially turn that on
And go at
and
it.
most of the time our guys don't. But I think in the past there's been examples of guys that came through here once that machine went up there.
Yeah.
They became slaves to the hit tracks because they could square a ball and it doesn't matter. Look, they could miss hit a ball no matter what, and they look. And so it's like a constant. With what we use, in practice, with like the Rapsodo, we're lucky to have a whole. It's our analytics squad.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our whoever's assigned to the Rapsodo that day is on the iPad out of the cage, out of the way of the players. He's just switching which player's hitting and recording everything.
Nice.
So then I get a report, if we do weekly, if we do a couple days, whatever.
Yeah.
And then whether it be like using the blast sensors, again, it's being collected and then the data is given to me. It's not being put up on a screen for them to see constantly.
Yeah.
So those two things, and then hit tracks is obvious, or not hit tracks, but TrackMan is in game. And really for the hitters, and we use K-Motion, and that I've done like the first certification with that, and I'm still learning that. I would never say that I've kind of, really have locked down K-Motion.
Conquered that, right?
But I can see the value in that. They have a biofeedback tool where guys can put it on, and it's not hitting; it's movements. So they're doing different, almost mobility screens.
Yeah.
They get to see it on a screen and see when they hit the preferred range or a targeted
that's sweet.
range.
Yeah.
And so that's where I kind of like that, because that does give them something to look at and use. So
yeah, that sounds sweet. I was even thinking as a pitcher that would be awesome, or just as like a squat or any sort of movement or that. Now you got me locked into K-Motion. I'll be looking up K-Motion.
Our pitchers just have started using it too.
Did they?
The biofeedback tool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, And so when you're, because with all the stuff that you are learning, and as an individual, when you're doing that sort of stuff, something that as a coach of teaching baseball, you've obviously been in this your entire life. Something that's really cool to me is, how do you keep learning about a thing that you know so much about a thing, yet you don't feel like you know that much about it in terms of just hitting? Yeah, ride with me on that one, Ryan.
Hitting's hard.
Yeah, it's wild.
Nobody's ever gonna have all the answers.
Right.
So I'll be the first to say that I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm coaching them and I'm passionate about it, and I think it goes back more to the relationships, knowing your guys, speaking their language.
Yeah.
What's gonna lift somebody up that may tear this guy down? What's gonna hurt this guy, but may really motivate this guy? Because again, everybody's body moves differently. Sure, there's some standards and principles that we believe in, but I think I will learn about hitting until the day I'm done coaching.
Yeah.
Ongoing.
Yeah, and that's sort of wouldn't you, do you think of that just in terms of life, like the curiosity of what you're doing? You said passion there, and I've always you're in the world where everyone is sort of taught to chase their passion. When you're 18 and you're in your young 20s, it's hey, just find what you're passionate about and do that forever. Yet for some reason we feel as if we've missed that tremendously across the board, just in general life, right? Whereas, well, then I guess the question would be, well, then what is passion, and then how do I understand when I found it, and then how do I know how to sustain it, right? Because it's like we talk about mental game or physical game or whatever it is. I was at we were training yesterday, and we were doing breath work. He's one of my favorite guys that I train. I've trained him for many years. He's played hockey for a really long time. And he says to me, he goes, how's baseball world with the mental stuff or breath work? And I go, some people really like it and some people don't like it. And he's like, oh yeah, I think that's pretty similar here. And I was like, well, some people like hitting off a tee and some people don't. You know, like some people really enjoy PFPs because they always throw it to the guy and coach thinks he's good. And then some people hate PFPs. You know, like it's like a balancing act of everyone on your team isn't as passionate as somebody else on the team about the thing. They might be passionate about something else, right? And typically what I've found is that people who are curious about a specific thing, that's typically the route you'd want to go down to find your passion. Right. And so that's kind of why, I mean, just in full circle of that stuff, is that how do you do that in sports specifically? Because you know you're trying to use this tool to help these guys. Is that also, do you try to find that uniqueness in each individual and then lay out that platform for them in baseball specifically? Like this guy's really curious about TrackMan, so we're going to maybe tee him up for more metric driven stuff. This guy's really passionate about the team, so maybe we're going to tee him up. You know what I mean? Like, do you kind of look inside your bubble of opportunity to learn what these guys are individually curious about, and maybe that's what helps them?
As it pertains to hitting,
yeah,
I think knowing what guys can handle data, like since we're just talking about tech right now,
yeah,
and then which guys they don't need to come even close to it.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Everybody knows Adley Rutschman's name.
Mm-hmm.
Last year during Christmas break or prior to Christmas break, we got all the blast sensors.
Okay.
And Adley Rutschman, who is Captain America and obviously was 1-1, you know, and is going to play in the big leagues for a really long time.
Yeah.
And chance to be a Hall of Famer. He's just special. He's different.
Yeah.
He leaves for break, and he's putting his blast sensor, his knob on, and he's hitting, and he found himself looking at what
was happening.
The pre-swing metrics are telling him,
mm-hmm.
and he would scorch a ball, and it would tell him, like, you know, it was bad here, it wasn't great here, it was okay here, and like all this. So he hated it because he knew himself, like, no, I felt that. I scorched it. I hit it exactly where I was supposed to on whatever.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's understanding what guys can handle. But with like their curiosities and their passions, that again, that's going to come down to them being honest with me, and that relationship's built up to the point where they can then kind of voice that.
Yeah.
And then we can dig deeper and talk more about whatever it may be.
Right.
Guys that are here, we're really lucky. They're very, 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 very passionate about baseball.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So most everything is going to be centered in, you know, being a Beav.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.
Being a Beav's different. So that's typically where that, you know, we go down that road, but maybe there is going to be a guy that's, you know, it's engineering or who knows.
Sure.
And I'm just like, I'll then make an assumption. Well, this guy's probably going to handle numbers a little bit better.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. If you do that, I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, doesn't that make sense to know if this guy's passionate about that outside of baseball? This might make more sense in baseball for this individual. Like, that's what I was sort of trying to get to, and that does make sense to me. Like if I can understand this guy, then maybe I'll know that. It's just I don't know if there's a right answer to it. It's just an interesting thing. But it's also, you look at what you do as an expectation as an individual, and then you take that out in terms of general life. How do you segue the ability to be prepared and dialed in to keep holding that standard of being a Beav, and then also pushing it just like in your general life? So outside of sports, what's sort of the way that you think to yourself, you talk to yourself? Because I mean, that's a thing in itself, right? I mean, you got to be dialed in outside of this whole thing. So what is that like in your realm of how you try to objectify your thinking, your choice making, and then the way that you kind of set yourself up to do what you do?
Practicing what I preach.
Yeah.
So when we first started talking, I know what kind of I have to do daily with myself, my family, office work, practice, individual time, whatever it is, but no matter what, I gotta make sure that, I'm physically, I'm sweating. I'm doing something in the gym that I get that sweat. I have my breath work that works for me that I gotta mix into my routine every day. And if I'm passionate about what I do myself, and again, it's not going to be the same or fit for every guy on the team. Right. Everybody's going to have their own. No matter what, again, I keep going back to trust. Guys are going to trust what I'm telling them, or what I feel like, hey, this is going to help you. This is genuinely going to help you. Honestly, it's what I'm most excited about for fall ball to get started again, and to get back with all of our guys. Yeah, is on the phone, on Zoom. It's different. Guys are bought into what we've been teaching and what we've been doing, since COVID has hit. But getting to be around them and really, really, and again, I'm thankful for your podcast, the guests that you have had on there, yourself, and really diving deeper into breath work, because that's something that I'm now really passionate about. So yeah.
What brought you, not for me, just think of yourself here, like what brought you curious? I mean, obviously I'm just I am a platform that I'm also intrigued by breath work, right? But for you personally, what was the curiosity? We'll go back to that one. What was the curiosity that turned it into somewhat of a passion and has enhanced you a little bit? What was the spark plug that got you going down that rabbit hole?
So I mentioned to you before, I heard Rachel Balkovic
she's a
talk
beast.
On the ABCA podcast. She mentioned the MindStrong Project podcast. And I instantly that day went on, found it. I've always been very, very, very passionate about the mental game. My number one question is, how do you teach it? How do you implement it? Everybody says, be tougher, be strong mentally, confidence, self-talk, this. But how do you teach it? How do you implement it? And so, dug into the podcast. The second episode I listened to was Patrick McCown.
Oh yeah.
And
beast as well.
Game over from there. I'm sleeping with my mouth taped shut that night. I'm noticing what my breathing's doing when I'm getting a run in. All right, nasal. Yeah. Nasal. Oh, I got to go nasal mouth. Oh man, no, I'm in my mouth. Like, oh well, let's go.
Yeah.
So it opened my eyes, and I could tell. Had a pretty stressful situation happen this week with my son, and again, boom, there's a stressor in front of me. I'm put in a tough situation. I couldn't help my son like I wanted to, because it was something he's going through. And so I could feel heart rate and whatever else. And so I just never back out of the situation, but I just focused on my breath. Yeah. I was present and I was there doing everything I potentially could. But then again, for me, when I'm able to slow down to focus just on my breath,
Yeah.
and especially, nasal breathing, the mechanics of it,
Yeah.
I'm instantly kind of boom, centered, present. And I just see the value in it for any athlete, any person. Yeah.
Well, I think you look at it because you and I'll be 31. I'm 31 basically. So yeah, you're a little further than me in the game in terms of when we were players, and I was the same way. Like the mental game it just makes so much sense, right? Like essentially the whole thing is the mental game, right? Like it's really not up for debate on whether or not it's important or not. Like it's the thing. You talked about perception and lens already. It's a perception. Like our ability to be a human is our ability to have the mental game, like just in any capacity in life, right? If we took away our awareness or our consciousness, well, then we would just be another mammal, right? Which is like what separates us. So it's a really cool thing. And I think that alone makes it fascinating to just have conversations. Now, I think what was tough for us when we were growing up playing baseball was, how do you objectify mental performance? How do you have a tool? How do I have that situation with my son? Or how do I have that situation with, tailor that towards sports? How do I plan on getting drafted and then not get drafted? How do I plan on playing this year and get hurt? How do I plan on having my senior year and COVID hits? How do I have all these things happen and then something's taken from you and you really are left to one controllable thing, and now the tool is that controller of the autonomic nervous system, which is breath, which is wild. And I actually just wrote about this the other day, about how it's nature's way of telling you that breathing, which has no nerve endings to the diaphragm, there's nothing in your system that proves to you that your diaphragm is getting actually stronger, like you're seeing a bicep or anything like that. So in my opinion, it's nature's way of disciplining you to have access to understanding the tool in which controls your moment. When it comes down to it, if you don't understand your breath, you don't understand the moment, because you can't shift. And that's what you were just talking about, right? And I think in mental, where I was frustrated as a player and as a coach to a degree was, well, how can we make this seem progressive? Like, how can we get this where people can actually see a tool, strengthen the tool, and then when things happen, boom, they're aware of it. Like you're talking about this past weekend. Like this happened, and I now have spent so much time with this tool that I'm going to go to it, right? And this is what Tuffy always, Tuffy, I think Tuffy spoke to you guys too down in Arizona, or he was down in Arizona, but he and I had a really cool conversation. He was telling me, he goes, Harv, sometimes I wake up and I don't feel good, and I know, well, I have the breath at some point in my day when I need a breath protocol to get to that thing for that day, I have it. And we were just talking about, that's the thing. That's the objective tool. Like that's the power of being able to have confidence, right? And so, you're a family man, a coach, you're recruiting, you're teaching things, you're learning from the whole game, and then you also have to take care of yourself. I mean, that's just mind-blowing of how much you're juggling and those sort of things, right? And what is also cool about your spot is you're also dependent on in so many areas, even outside of your family, right? And so you look at it as you have so many people's emotions who depend on you. And at your level, your calmness is, I can't imagine how incredibly contagious that almost has to be, right? So is that a reason why you think breathwork for you too has been advantageous? Is that like I'm going to have all these people's emotions thrown at me and I don't get to decide what emotion they bring that day. So I need to have something. I need to have something that I can control so that I can give them the best response that I can give them.
Sure. And even more so, kind of going back to practicing what I preach.
Yeah.
If this is something that's going to be a staple, which it will be.
Yeah.
Strength, we're blessed here. Coach Anderson, our strength guy.
Yeah.
He's PRI certified.
Oh yeah, right on. Yeah, that's
Fastball
awesome.
Restoration Institute.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So he's always hammered the mechanics of the breath and the role the breath plays when you're doing your postural move.
Yeah.
Most of us have anterior tilt, in our pelvis, and so just He's big. He's big on the breath there. Davey, our trainer, is a rock star. The rest of the coaching staff is all on board. I mean, we're going to go through dynamic warm up, whatever we decide with 3 days a week with a gulp of water in their mouth.
Yeah, let's go.
But again, if I personally can make the decision each morning, or if it's night, because if I'm getting up early, I'm going to work out. Some nights I'll take a shower in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to switch the water to as cold as it gets.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and focus on controlling my breath.
Yeah.
When that freezing cold water hits all over different places of my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I want to be able to do, and be able to then have our players that are, up for cold immersion in the ice baths or the showers themselves and things like that. Because again, that to me, that right there is a coachable or teachable way
Mm-hmm.
of when I speed up and I lose my breath, or I get in that position, and then being able to then really self-regulate and calm down. It's a way to coach the mental game.
Yeah.
It's not just saying, guys, we're meditating today.
Right.
Maybe 10 out of 35 to 40 guys can really click with meditation.
Right.
Great. Those 10, we know that's a tool in their tool belt.
Boom.
Maybe half the guys will be 100% bought in with cold immersion, and that's going to be a tool for them to where they know that it helps them. Whatever these tools are just, they're giving them to the guys so they can then, strengthen their tool belt, use it to be able to get in the present moment. Because that's what I told you before when we've talked. One of the indicators, I never even knew it, when I would see a guy that's pitching on the mound and it's starting to, maybe ball 1, ball 2, things aren't looking great.
Yeah.
And his mouth's open.
Yeah.
And it's an easy indicator. If I see that guy has his mouth open while he's pitching,
Mm-hmm.
I instantly, think, okay, it's time to go talk. And you see guys that are cruising it.
Yeah.
Just, so. It's
wild, right? We talked about that a while back of when you see it, you can't unsee it, which becomes the trippiest part.
It's crazy. And so I just listened to the podcast with Emily Hightower.
Oh man. Yeah. She is awesome.
She talked about kind of cheating and counting breaths.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I let them know she's in there. And so it made me laugh, because it's another way that then, like, if we're in a meeting, if we're something, and I can tell this guy is, breathing however many times a minute.
Yeah.
And maybe something happened that day. Maybe
right.
girlfriend, whatever, maybe a test, maybe who knows. And so it can be an easy way for me to grab that guy. Come here, man. What's up? Like, you talk? Like, and so that was really cool.
Which again becomes now even like an objective. That's a skill for you. Like the more your eye sees it, the more I track it, the more I understand it. Now there's like a skill that I have as a coach in my toolbox as well. Right. And it's, what I've noticed the most with athletes is you get them, if you can see how they breathe when they come to you, if you can start studying mechanics of breath and then seeing how the pace of their breath is when they get to you, the more you do it, you can kind of tell what question to ask. And I think that there's a lot of value in that, right? Because we're especially at the level you're at, these guys will do whatever it takes to get to a national championship and then go try to play Major League Baseball. I mean, these guys are going to burn the midnight oil for 4 to 5 years if it takes that to get to where they need to get to, right? They are going to push and push and push. And the hard part about that is, like, one, it's a good lesson and it's worth it, and it's part of the system, is you do have to push yourself. And if you're not doing that, what are you doing, right? You got to try to get to that level. I get that. But at the same time, you can't, and I think you and I talked about this, you can't put stress on top of stress. Your stress has to adapt. And so if you're getting somebody who maybe had a tough go with the girlfriend or failed a test or something happened, and then they come to you and the hitman's off that day, or they can't feel it and they're letting it rip, and then they got weights afterwards, and they got study tables or lift afterwards, and they don't sleep, that day or the day after you get them, I mean, we could be running the risk of a future injury because compensation, survival mode, all sorts of things. You could get in freeze states. So now psychologically you start to freeze. There's so many things that could happen. And like, that's why I asked you that question, because you specifically have not just one person coming into you every day, but numerous people with that storyline, and that storyline happened across everybody to some capacity. Every single person comes to you each day with a story. And that's what I think is so cool about your role, is that you have to do such an intuitive work on yourself to understand the emotion of the person in front of you so you can meet them where they're at, not just that year, but day to day. I got to meet you where you're at that day. And that is where I think what you do for a living is remarkable, in the sense of how you can command and coach and teach people based off of where they're at, because there's so much more to it than just the hit. It's a human that you got to try to understand, and that's a wild process, which is why you're a beast. You do the espresso walk in the morning, but I know that that's for a huge reason. It's for you to be able to do that.
So everybody would agree that no matter what, hard work has to be at the top of importances. What the work you put in, what you get out, how hard you go about it, of course. But we get kids that they don't understand that there has to be a compromise with working smart and understanding and listening to how hard they're going, because it's literally all, in the morning on their own, go to class. They're eating something. They're prepared. They're preparing their meals. They're smart there, but then it's practice and it's full out, right. And then it's up in the cage right after practice on their own, and it's full out. And then they go home and they have study hall and eat, and then they're back in the cage and it's full out going. It's like that's not sustainable.
No,
because no matter what, you're never. Yeah, you may think you're sleeping good. You may think that you're getting to a point where you're getting the right rest and recovery, but. So that's something that we struggle with every year, is for guys to understand that, work hard. It's number one, right. But it's got to be smart too, because you're gonna break down. And so,
you're gonna bust. I mean, it's, how many 10 plus big leaguers have been on C4 for 15 years? Like how many guys have been ripping pre-workout for every workout for 2 decades? Like you're not doing it. You know what I mean? Your body can't handle that. It's a wild concept. Well, hey man, as you dive into the rest of the day, I'm going to take you through our Diamond Series. You're a baseball guy, so this should be a home run for you. But when we take everyone, we do take everyone through the Diamond Series at the end, and we typically tailor it around, home plate being purpose, first base standards, systems, and vision. When you look at purpose, I think the thing that I was excited to talk to you, and I've been excited to keep getting to know you, is you're just a good dude, and you're very curious. But it was the first time I ever talked to you on the phone. I got off the phone and I was like, that was awesome, man. Like, that was a college baseball coach, a guy in the game of which I love, who just is chasing so many edges for the betterment of like the person, which is why I was so juiced when we first started talking about breath work and figuring out ways to help people in general. That is awesome, because if I would have been a player and I knew that my coach was doing that would have, like, to know that now in my shoes, to know that there's a coach that would do that for me when I was in those shoes, is a really special thing. And it's something that has drawn me to your guys' program, just in the sense of how you guys handle business and how you look after these guys at that level, which is even cooler too, because they have such an advantage of just what they're going to take on in life outside of baseball. But so there's got to be some heavy purpose driven in there, right? And I got to hear a little bit about you as a player, which makes a lot more sense now. But when you think about your purpose, right, when you're coming to work or you're going to your family and yourself, I always dial it into identity, service, and struggle. Most importantly, what do you find willing to struggle for? So if I tailor it towards you on that this morning, and then we'll dive into our rest of our days individually. But when you get moving, what is it that creates a sense of deep purpose for which you feel is worth struggling for the people that you want to service?
Wow.
Yeah.
for the most part, we've hit on it throughout the conversation with, real relationships to where as like, I guess as it pertains to coaching, if I can build trust, things are going to be better. Things are going to be better for our players, and then for me too, because selfishly, I'm learning from them. They trust me. Then we have this dialogue that it's back and forth. It's give and take, to where if I see something that maybe they're not feeling, so it goes down to those lasting relationships. If I can help with somebody's perspective. Another thing that we tend to get, like our recruits, a lot of our guys, and I think most of us are to an extent as baseball guys, we're perfectionists. If I can pull the reins back on helping them understand that perfection it's not real, it's unattainable. You see guys, you see the shoulders just kind of start to kind of relax, and so I guess it's really the relationships with these guys, to where if I can impact them positively in becoming better dudes, better men, not just baseball players. When they go out in the real world, they're learning things that they can take from our program that's going to last with them for a life. And most coaches are going to say that, but so yeah, it's, I don't know if I really answered it well.
Well, no, you answered it great. It's always like, imagine if, what is it? People always say that, I can't think of it, the cliches, like that's a cliche, but imagine if we did. I've always counteracted with this question or comment to, well, what if we all did the cliches? Like, what if we all did the common sense? Like, what would that look like? That's even gnarlier, because then it would all make sense. So it's I think that it's powerful, and it's a combated thing where you're trying to balance that out. It's like you have equity buckets of trust and not trust, and you need to have trust, and it's super hard work. And the objective to try to reach perfection, to fill that trust bucket as best as you can. It's a super difficult concept. And that's why, the next one is set up like it is with standards, because you look at it as mental, emotional, and physical standards as an individual. At one point you were your own man traveling the world. Now you've got all this other stuff going on. When you see of it as, you got to get up and attack your day. I know you miss just like the rest of us because we're humans, but what is the day-to-day mental, emotional, physical bucket that needs to be filled up, that you can at least bring yourself to the table to optimize somebody else?
Again, I've touched on it, but my breath, what I do with getting, it doesn't have to be a full-blown workout or going to the gym, but sweating, physical activity daily, and then the best job I can do with my nutrition, something that's always going to continue, I think, to get better throughout my life. And also sleep too. I'm a very early riser, always have. I don't set an alarm.
Nice.
So being able to balance out, coming home, being a dad, doing everything I have to in that realm, and then being a husband, which actually, is number one. And how all this balance out, and then get into bed at a decent time, because I know I'm going to be up, in between 5 and 5:30. So, it's the four prongs. It's for, at least for me. Breath, BMNS, right? Or breath,
nutrition, movement, sleep. Yeah, that's it. Non-negotiables.
I'm stealing it from you.
Go take it and run, man. Take it and run. It's the non-negotiables. I always tell people that I would never, and maybe I'm crazy, but I would choose life after those four. So I would look at it as, I'm not taking a job. I'm not doing anything unless I can have my breath, I can have good nutrition, I'm able to move, and I'm able to sleep. If I can do those 4 every day, and the scheduling or the planning in which I can feel good about and confident and comfortable in, then we'll talk about what seems passionate in life, or what I'm curious about. But those are so non-negotiable. I don't even hesitate. I always tell people I wouldn't even argue with those. Like, do those 4, and then whatever happens in your life, enjoy it, But, it's something too where you say that side of it, which is awesome. And it's amazing, man. And what was cool about the no alarm clock, when you're at 5 to 5:30, just curious, what's your day look like on the phone? Because you probably get blown up all the time as a college coach. Do you have trouble waking up in the morning and trying not to work? Or do you get up in the morning and you just want to start getting into the day? Like, how's that morning work? I love the no alarm. I typically wake up on my own too. So I try to, if I'm not careful, I'll start right away. If I don't pay attention to that moment, I'll get at 6. I could be at 6:15, be full blown into a book or an email or a text battle that I've seen exchanges that I just missed or whatever it is. So do you have any trouble with that, or do you sort of how's your morning look in the stillness factor?
I think everybody, has to kind of make that decision. There's going to be times where maybe I don't know, all my back's a little bit sore right when I wake up, and for whatever reason I grab my phone. It's like, no. But I'm thumbing through Twitter or something. Read some post or whatever. But luckily for me, I'm on the West Coast, and if I'm up at 5 or 5:30, we don't tend to talk to a lot of people outside of our time zone, and so I'm not having to really make a ton of calls or talk to a lot of people at that time. I can kind of get into what I need to do, with the light hypoxic training, have my cup of espresso, get to the gym, get to the office, and then I'm out the door and rolling. Is where, so I'm gonna just change the subject a little bit because I have to bring it up. It's hilarious, and you'll go there, or you'll be there when you're a dad someday.
Yeah.
I've started to do breath work with my 6-year-old son.
Let's go.
We were at the coast, and the water's freezing, Oregon coast water.
Yes.
So cold. We're going through tide pools and whatever, and I'm seeing him. He's digging through. He's catching all these little mole crabs, and he's looking at the starfish and the anemones, and the water will get like up to his knees, and it's like, no, through your nose, through your nose. And he'll instantly just and he starts over.
Yeah, I love it. Overriding.
We're jumping on the trampoline, and we're going nuts, jumping, and you start to build up a sweat. And it's getting endurance. And no, through your nose. Through your nose.
Oh, dude, this guy's going to be an absolute stallion.
I'm excited for our guys to obviously really understand, I guess, how bought in I am with it. But then to tell them, my 6-year-old's doing it. Come on, dude. Like, really?
This guy's going to be cruising through the cold. Yeah. Oh, man, that is super cool. I'm happy you shared that. Well, so take everything we've talked about, man, which has been really enjoyable, and to have a morning coffee with you over the Zoom. But when you take this in the future, what's the carrot out in front of you, brother? What's the vision? Where do you want to take this? Because I'm biased here about breath work, but to me, you have to think, hearing you talk about breath work in college baseball is awesome to me, right? Because I'm biased to that, because I spent so many years not being able to have these conversations, and like to now start finding people who are also intrigued with breath work for what it is and what it can do for you. It's so cool for me. So I really do appreciate that. And I've told you that before. It's cool to just have that connection, because for a long time I felt like I was just on an island, but for the position of the future in the game, with the technology, with breathing, which is technology, I do metrics with breathwork. So I'm just a part of that as well. And then your children and the family and sports and everything you're trying to do and push, what's the thing out in front of you that you can see yourself changing, improving, or implementing that really excites you?
continuing to impact Beavs.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I want my my kids, my family to grow up in Corvallis, and
That's awesome.
my sure I have an ego, but I don't need to be a head coach. I've been a head coach at the junior college level. I wanna be a Beav until I'm done coaching, and so impacting our guys. It's this place. I'm so passionate about Corvallis, Oregon, and this university, and the guys that we're able to get here, and
Yeah.
so, and then it's also impacting others. My family. I've always had a funny knack to where I'll pick something up from somewhere. I remember this is, I guess I'm kind of showing some humility here.
Yeah, let it rip.
Had somebody tell me, "Hey man, telling you right now, Metamucil fiber, get that Metamucil fiber. Our diets, we're not getting that into our diets enough." Da 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 da. I started doing. I'm like, "Oh wow, like yeah." Once this deal starts, all right, and I'm talking to my parents about it. I'm talking to my friends about it. And all of a sudden, I have this collection of people that are now supplementing, some extra fiber in their diet.
Sure.
And so I've been kind of doing it with breath work as much as I can now, because it's something that, again, I dove in, and I keep diving. I'm diving even deeper into it, and I love it. And so it's funny when I talk to my wife about it, because she's not a sports person.
Sure.
She's not whatever, but she'll listen to me, and she's good with it. And then so finally, like, hear me enough about one topic or one thing, she's like, all right, like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And about breath, she finally goes, she looks at me, she goes, I had both of our children with no nothing. Like, so she went full natural, like nothing. She's like, I took that Hypno Babies course, right? I'm like,
wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so she pretty much flipped me on my head, like, honey, I've been doing breath work. I've known it way before you have.
I know the feel of it. Yeah.
There's some self-hypnosis stuff that goes into it, but it's based around a ton of like breath work practice.
100%.
And so I'm going, oh man, you beat me to the punch.
Yeah.
And so yeah, getting it out there. The benefits outreach, being an athlete and being able to have something kind of physical there to teach, slowing your mind down and being present.
Yep.
There's so many more benefits to what it does for your body as a whole. So yeah.
Dude, that's cool, man. Crazy cool story about your wife as well. And that's what's cool about breath. There's so many avenues about it, and you can learn so many things. I always challenge people, learn the esoteric side of it, learn the science side of it, learn your personal experience with it. Use it where it's stressful, use it in meditative. There's all sorts of ways to do it, but that's the point. Just be curious. I think that might have been the title of our conversation, man, was just the curiosity of passion, maybe. I don't know. But just to final up here, is there a way, what can people reach out or see you on Twitter or anything like that, or any handles where people can kind of hear more about what you're doing or follow the Beavs as best as they can? What are some of the things, the outlets that you guys have that people can follow?
I think at Beaver Baseball is our baseball Twitter handle. All I have is Twitter, and I solely use Twitter for learning and recruiting, and seeing different kids with it be their video or what it may be, following them following me. That's at Gipson OSU. Not a big social media guy. Try and stay clear of it as much as I can.
Yeah,
and
right
on. But yeah, just Twitter really.
Well, hey man, thanks for the time, man. It was cheers to the rest of the day, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. I'm gonna keep picking your brain and we'll keep challenging each other and keep and pushing each other just to learn as much as we can. I feel like I connected with you on that right away. Like I said a while back, or now we've been talking for a few months, so it's been really cool. But I always think it's amazing to have your guys' time and have a guest come on here and give us their time away. That's the highest currency, and you're going to give your time away for the rest of the day. So for to you to put time on a Thursday morning here. Was it Thursday? Yeah, in the morning here, and chop up a conversation with me is really, really meaningful. So I really appreciate the time. Obviously, I hope that baseball and sports comes back to neutral, so you guys can get some more, some normalcy back in your guys' lives and in mine as well, right? But especially for sports, I just would be cool to see that. And I know the minor leagues is going through some tough things right now in the moment, so there's a lot of chaos. But people like yourself will help with that, man. So I appreciate you jumping on with me and talking on this platform, and I look forward to having people hear this from not just the baseball community and the college community, but just in general. I think it's amazing to have your perspective and the people that you teach and see, and that's the future of the game, but that's the future of living too, right? So it's really cool, and there's a lot of accountability that goes into that. So I look forward to keep talking to you, keep growing our relationship, learning from you, but more so, I really appreciate having you on this morning.
Thank you, Harvey. Appreciate it, man. And you got to get out to Oregon. I got a place for you to stay.
Yeah.
Just let me know.
Well, take me out on that water. Take me out into those tide pools, take me out into that. We'll go out. We'll do some breath work. So yeah, we'll do that, man. Enjoy the rest of the day. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right.
All right, brother. Cheers.